The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan York. It is a time of transition in Rhode Island, and we keep waiting for it to finalize. Word from Washington is that Governor Raimondo will get her final hearing and confirmation vote sometime early next week. Best laid plans, right? In the meantime, the stuff of governance is wobbling all over the place. Yeah, COVID, vaccine distribution, it's a major and exclusive thing in the minds of many. But meanwhile, there's all sorts of other challenges out there. Tonight, we're going to talk about one of them, Zambarano Hospital. In fact, the entire Eleanor Slater system. The Pastore Hospital is in Cranston, the Zambarano Hospital is in Burrillville, and together they make the Eleanor Slater system under the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. It's a big acronym because there's a lot going on there. Word is that they've been working on a plan for a year or so to downsize both facilities, but it's difficult for the public to understand, but more importantly, for the patients to have a plan, some of whom have families, some of whom don't, and the employees who don't know whether they're coming or going. Tonight, we'll talk to two state representatives, two members of the delegation, State Representative David Place and State Senator Jessica De La Cruz, who have been on this, asking more questions and getting answers. So, this is a very complicated situation. It's got a lot of moving parts, and it's been a long time coming, but not a lot of public acknowledgement of what's going on here. So these two legislators are going to help us with this. David Place is a state representative from the Burrillville area, and Senator Jessica De La Cruz is from the other house. So welcome, folks. Nice to have you in. I know this is of grave concern on multiple levels to you. First, the care of the patients, and that ought to be primary. And then second, it's about jobs and it's about economy. And I know you've got some theories, and David has articulated some theories about what he thinks is happening here. So let's begin, if we can. Welcome to you both. Representative Place, tell me what you think is going on. Well, actually, why don't we do this? Jessica, remind everybody what Zambarano Hospital does.
Zambarano Hospital is the only state hospital that provides long-term acute care for individuals that have nowhere else to go. It is their last stop.
Right. I mean, it's as simple as that. People who have long-term illness, many of whom outlive their caretakers. It's a split between those who have severe physical disability. Some have some mental health issues as well that mix in. It's a pretty heady place, no doubt about that, and it's a serious place. That for the most part operates, David, in relative obscurity unless you need it, right?
Well, and that's what it is. It's a safety net. It's safety nets for people in the state that have no other place to go. We always talk about safety nets, and this is the epitome. If you've had a major brain injury, spinal cord injury, or have lost control of your major bodily functions, paraplegics, things like that, this is where you wind up going if your family can't care for you. And, what people don't understand is it's very expensive. It's very emotionally taxing to deal for people that you love on a daily basis. And this is where they wind up if the families can't do it with their own means. And it's just a shame that for some reason we're always going after, when we're looking for ways to cut the budget and everything like that, we can spend money on free college, but we can't take care of the people that can't take care of themselves.
All right. Well, look, there's a whole series of events that have gone on here. There's been a plan to change up both facilities under what is the Eleanor Slater system. The Eleanor Slater system has the Pastore Hospital in Cranston and the Zambarano Hospital in Burrillville. And if I understand some of the background on this, there's a Medicaid change, and there's a certain number of patients who just aren't being paid for, and the state has got a multi-million-dollar redo where they're sending near 100 patients out of Cranston, I understand, and building a new almost $70 million facility to take care of them. It's very difficult to follow. At Zambarano, there are about 75 full-time patients there?
It's around there, 75. I got the specific numbers from one of the employees, but you know, unfortunately, that number is going down every single day because they've closed the door. They've confirmed, they've literally stopped even taking applications. So even if a person may meet their requirements to be admitted, they won't take the application. And I've talked to a few employees over there. Matter of fact, last night I had a very long conversation with one employee who talked about how they won't seek out other sources of funding. They talk about the Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement for the federal government, but there's no attempt to seek out other reimbursement. I mean, the public stories that have been out there was primarily around the psychiatric patients, in terms of the number of patients that were in the psychiatric ward. And they've made no attempt to find alternate sources of funding, and instead they're shipping patients to Massachusetts and Connecticut. And I know, Jessica, you told a story about a gentleman who had gotten discharged by his family, and his family wanted to bring him back. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
It's true. Rep Place is right. One of the patients, the family said, insisted that he be released. And of course, the hospital is not going to keep anyone against their will. And they just stated their concerns. And sure enough, the family was unable to care for the individual at home. So the individual was sent to Rhode Island Hospital. Rhode Island Hospital said he can't stay here. So Rhode Island Hospital sent him to Butler. Then Butler said he can't stay here any longer, sent him back to Rhode Island Hospital. Then Rhode Island Hospital said, listen, you got to take him. We can't keep taking him back. And so they tried to readmit him to Zambarano, but because Zambarano has a policy that they will not readmit patients that are considered new patients, he could not be readmitted and was sent to Massachusetts, where he now resides, and our tax dollars go and pay for that care.
Yeah, so the money follows the patient, right? Okay, and reportedly Zambarano has not admitted anybody new for quite some time as part of this behind-the-scenes transitional strategy that they've got going on, correct?
Yeah.
Last spring.
So it's
like you said, Dan, they've in essence closed the front door. They've closed the front door, and because if you don't admit anybody else, when you have these types of patients, generally speaking, the employees can attest to this. Generally speaking, the only way a person leaves that facility, unfortunately, is after they're deceased, after they've lived their life there. So they have made a policy decision to shut this hospital down, and we have to ask ourselves. Matter of fact, I got an answer. Where have the patients that normally would have gone in? They've always been a consistent inflow of patients into this facility. Well, I asked the question. I asked the employees, where are they going? Well, do you know where they've been sitting? They've been sitting in acute care beds at Rhode Island Hospital and other Rhode Island facilities, and they're part of the hospital overflow and the problems we're having with the COVID-related stuff. So they're exasperating. They've got a place to put these people, and they're exasperating so many other things. And they just don't want to use the facility. It floors me that they choose not to use this facility when they can easily accommodate these people.
All right. Well, we should talk here in the next segment about what we think is really going on. I mean, if there's an understandable public plan that makes sense for patients and the budget, well then so be it. But somehow that doesn't seem to be happening, and the representative has a thought about what could be a motive too. We'll be right back on My State of Mind. Stay with us. Back with State Representative David Place and State Senator Jessica De La Cruz. We're talking about Zambarano Hospital. Look, there's a note that we got last week that was passed around on social media, which is kind of an excerpt of a memo. And we'll show it to you here, where the union representatives were talking to the union members about what the expectation was. And this was late last week, and some 22 patients were scheduled to be moved this week. Do we know if that happened?
Okay. So perfectly honest, I got a text just before we came on from an employee at the hospital that said, yes, they're still planning on moving the patients, even though they're in COVID lockdown.
Well, that's the thing that folks don't know. Jess, you were telling me that they've got a serious COVID problem going on at Zambarano Hospital right now. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we had a scheduled walkthrough of the facility for Friday, for today. And unfortunately, it was canceled because 13 employees tested positive for COVID-19. So obviously, we can't have the walkthrough. We'll be having the meeting via WebEx. But it's concerning, as Representative Place was saying, if they're not following COVID protocols and they're still merging those patients into a unit, I question whether or not that's actually safe.
You know, when non-medical people like us start questioning whether a medical facility is operating in a safe fashion, there's two things in play here. Either we don't know what we're talking about, or they don't know what they're doing. There's
a third option, Dan. We're listening to the employees that are the ones that provide the day-to-day care, or we're listening to the administrators who are responsible for the dollars and cents. So you've got the people that are responsible for the patients and the emotional and actual medical care, and then you've got the people responsible for the dollars and cents. And you're hearing from the people with dollars and cents one thing, we're hearing from the caretakers something totally different.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of back channel conversation going on coming out of that facility. So you folks, I'm sure, on a pretty steady flow. Even I'm receiving it now. Here's the challenge. We don't always get immediate response from the administration or parts of it to public concerns, but this one is one of the worst I've experienced in our efforts to get a hold of the powers that be. Ironically, Catherine Power is the director, and pretty well reputed, longtime public servant and medical person, but she is not responding to us. Her spokesperson talks about them being completely tied up day after day after day with no end in sight on the schedule as to when they could actually speak to us publicly. My experience tells me that's one of a couple things, or a bunch of a couple things. One, the transition is brutal for everybody right now because, and I'm talking about the governor transition here, who you're actually reporting to and who's going to hold you accountable. And who's making decisions down the pipeline is somewhat difficult. I know Representative Place, you have suggested that Gina Raimondo more or less dumped this decision, on her way out. Is she leaving? Maybe next week, we're told. So there's that. And then there's the, it's too bad that you're crossing your fingers. I think everybody is. I mean, you want to talk about, it's a whole nother conversation, but talk about pounding away at your legacy. And exhausting what has been a favorability rating of goodwill from COVID response, right? With this extended disconnect, but stick around that she's done, and keeping Dan McKee at bay. By the way, speaking of McKee, you've included him in these conversations, correct?
Yes.
And he's participating in some informational meetings with you. Do you feel like he's up to speed on what's happening there?
Well, I feel like he's giving a good faith effort, and he's just starting. And when Representative Place and I sent a letter to the governor 6 months ago, we heard nothing. When Representative Place set up a meeting for us to meet with Governor Dan McKee, within days we had a meeting with him. That shows leadership. Now, I'm so thankful, but I shouldn't have to be thankful, because that's what good leaders do, right? There's a problem. We're going to find a solution. We're going to talk to the people, the representatives. We're going to talk to the people in the town, the administrators in the hospital. That's what good leadership is. And I'm thankful to Governor McKee for giving us that time. He didn't make any promises except that he would look at all the information, which is what we can ask for.
David?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we're pretty confident. The employees up at Zambarano have felt like their jobs have been in jeopardy for a long time. No matter what the administration keeps saying in terms of, we have a commitment to keep Zambarano open, we have a commitment. Well, you're not. You're functionally shutting the facility down long term. They ceased admitting patients. If you stop admitting patients and patients are still unfortunately passing away, there's only one thing that's eventually going to happen. The facility is going to close. And where this conversation started was Thursday night. You're going to reference that letter. The union, the UNAP RN union, sent out a letter to their employees notifying they're closing 1/3 of the facility. They're shutting down 1/3 of the wings. There's 6 wings now. They're shutting down 2 of them, consolidating onto 4 floors. And you can't tell me that you're not looking to close something down when you're actually functionally closing it down.
Yeah, understood. And the other point that I think is an important one to make here is that there doesn't seem to be an understanding of motive, other than a Medicaid funding issue, which I'm sure is instrumental. You're concerned about motive. Are you still holding to this notion, David, that you think perhaps this has something to do with the governor being upset at Burrillville?
Well, you said earlier, Dan, you hear from back channels all the time. That's what employees are. That's what people are telling me. That's what I'm hearing from people that are around. That's what they feel. So I'm expressing exactly what the people on the street are telling me. That they're saying that they feel like that they've had their sights on this facility for a long time. Whatever the motive is, they've been looking to shut this thing down regardless of what they're saying publicly. Again, she sent out her administration sent out that notice Friday talking about, I'm committed to keeping Zambarano open. Well, again, that is not what's happening. They're not committed to keeping it open. They're shutting it down.
So I should point out that the anger at Burrillville, you say, the theory goes that the power plant pushback and all the aggravation that came along with that.
Name the power plant. I've had someone say the power plant. I've had people say the Second Amendment sanctuary. I've heard the bull moose finished ahead of her in the gubernatorial race. It doesn't matter. The simple fact is she's shutting the hospital down. You know what? Her motives are her motives, but she's doing it, and we're trying to stop it. Thank God, again, that's why we want to bring attention to this, because she's functionally started to shut this facility down, and we're hoping that soon-to-be Governor McKee is going to come in and realize it's just wrong. I mean, you think about the what this facility does. It's so unique. I want to say soon-to-be Governor McKee said this. He's been told it's a one-of-a-kind facility in the nation. Those are his words. And I've heard comparable comments from other people. These are unique employees. You don't get these people back. Once they're gone, they're gone. The institutional knowledge that comes along with these people is in the wind. Yeah. And we're making a horrible mistake shutting this facility down. And I can't explain it. It has a purpose. It has a purpose, and their purpose. When you say publicly you're not doing something, but in reality you are, you can't help but to ask questions. I mean, like you said, they're stonewalling you, they're stonewalling us.
All right.
You have to ask yourself what's going on.
Sure. When we come back, what these two elected officials expect to happen in the next week. Stay with us on My State of Mind. Final words from Jessica De La Cruz, state senator, and David Place, state representative. I mean, obviously, you don't hold the decision-making power or the purse strings, but you are advocating as legislators for your district, both for patients. By the way, the patients are statewide. They're not pigeonholed into the region. These are statewide patients. The jobs feel more geographically attuned to your districts, right?
The patients are our constituents. They're registered to vote up there. So while they come from statewide, the families are from Tiverton. I field questions from Tiverton and things like that. They're our constituents. You go on the voter list. They are our constituents.
Well, look, I appreciate your perspective on that, and forgive me for actually misstating it, because that's true. And it comes down to this idea that actually, David, my mistake there really points out the nature of this facility, and that is people live there.
Yes.
People live there, and their lives and their dignity are as important as anybody else's, perhaps more so because they're so disadvantaged based on, their health challenges. Senator, last word here. What do you expect to happen in the next few days with this transition and everything else? Do you expect some clarity on the fate of Zambarano?
I don't expect any clarity anytime soon. I know that Governor Dan McKee has to work on a budget, so we'll have a better picture soon, but I think he's going to have till mid-March to put a budget together. I am very thankful to him that we did meet and that he gave us time. I hope that, I wish Governor Raimondo the best and that she's confirmed as early as next Tuesday. I'd like to say the very last thing, just to tie things together, is that the staff have always felt comfortable reaching out to Representative Place and I. When I reach out to the administration, we're stonewalled or given canned responses from their attorney. Everything has to go through the attorney at the hospital. So when the staff speak to us, call me at night or text me, they're afraid to come out and speak up against what's happening at the hospital for fear of losing their jobs. So I just want transparency in the process.
Understood.
If there's something wrong, let's bring it to the surface.
And we will follow up perhaps here and certainly on the radio weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO with the latest news. Representative Place, appreciate it. Senator De La Cruz, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
We'll keep tabs on this important conversation. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. A lot of things seem like they fall through the cracks when you have a transition this weird. Hopefully, Governor McKee, to be, when he is governor, will get a handle on the Zambarano thing very quickly. It's not like he doesn't have a few things on his plate, like about this high. We'll continue to follow this story on the radio as well, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.